Donald Trump's TikTok deal is unprecedented. And in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it's frankly just designed to piss people off. Because remember, my goal is to make sure you know that I'm going to poop on all politicians. And I'll tell you, Donald Trump does nothing more than brag about how great TikTok has been towards his campaign and his ability to get elected and to get in tune with that younger vote. And frankly, Donald Trump might be about to turn TikTok into the biggest campaign apparatus ever for the Republican Party. Now, keep in mind, to some extent, Democrats had the campaign operations, on lock with Meta and Twitter, sort of old school Instagram algorithms. This might take all of that in the opposite pendulum direction, but to an even further extreme. Consider some of these details. Now, facts, and then we'll get back to some opinion. Facts. ByteDance will hold less than 20% of the new TikTok deal, which implies that China's probably not going to be super motivated to get this deal moving anytime soon. Donald Trump has confidence that China is going to approve the deal, but there are currently no talks planned. So basically, if China doesn't sign this deal now, then Donald Trump is just going to sign another 90-day extension executive order, and we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road while talking about how close we are to a deal, but never actually getting a deal. To me, it sounds like if China's going to lose the algorithm, which is China's influence over Americans, which would then be handed to the Republican Party, China probably has an incentive to just delay this as much as possible, or at least leverage other trade talks in conjunction with this TikTok deal, because Trump really wants this TikTok deal, probably and likely before midterms. So my belief, this is my opinion, I always like to signpost opinion versus fact. My opinion is that China has an incentive to drag this out until right before midterms, then get Trump to capitulate on maybe a trade deal. And then after he capitulates on a trade deal, maybe then Trump gets his excitement over, hey, I get the algorithm, I get to use this for midterms, I'll loosen tariffs on China in the meantime. My opinion. Okay, back to facts. Oracle, Silver Lake, and the Murdochs are all expected to be investors in this deal, including potentially Michael Dell. Yes, the Murdochs, the Fox News Corp folks. How interesting. This is actually unsurprising. Larry Ellison of Oracle, the Murdochs. We already knew that Fox News, back to opinion, okay, that's the fact. The information reported Donald Trump talking about the Murdochs being part of this deal. Now, let's get a little bit to opinion. We already know that Fox News is basically state-run TV at this point, okay? We don't need to threaten the licenses of all the programs on the left to argue that Fox News is basically state-run TV. You got to think about the cycle here of how people go from the Trump administration to Fox News, think Larry Kudlow, think Kayleigh McEnany, or the other way around. I mean, I'll just mention some of the names here of people who either worked for Fox News or were contributors to Fox News and are now in the Trump administration. You ready for this? John Duffy, Gabbard, who was a contributor, Mike Waltz, Keith Kellogg, Mike Huckabee, Leo Terrell. You've got Tom Horman. You've got Dilfush. She's been a contributor for a while. Sarah Carter, Tammy Bruce, Dan Bongino at the FBI, he was at Fox. Monica Crowley, Fox. Sebastian Gorka, Richard Grinnell. You've got Dr. Oz. You've got Alex Pfeiffer, Abigail Slater, and Bessent. But Bessent only appeared on Fox. He was never a paid contributor. But like this, there's such a clear correlation between the Trump administration and Fox. It's really hard to determine that they're different. Now, acquiring TikTok and having the Murdochs involved potentially gives Fox News some input into the TikTok algorithm to help perpetuate that sort of right-wing ideology and Fox News-style news content. Now, why do we say that? Okay, now moving from opinion back to fact for a moment on what we heard. Well, the fact is that Oracle will, quote, study the algorithm. Oracle will retrain the algorithm after that. Now, that's very interesting because, wait a second. Hold on a sec. Hey, Vicente, I'm just in the middle of recording a video in a studio. Can I get back to you? All right, thank you. Uh, you know, some people don't like texting, so I'll have to call them right after this. It's all right. We got so many renovations going on with House Hack right now. There's a lot going on. But anyway, Oracle will study the algorithm and retrain it. Now that's really interesting because the United States is not going to take a golden share in TikTok. They're not going to have any kind of government official on the board of directors, but they are going to have 6 out of 7 board of directors seats be held by American people like maybe Larry Ellison or the Murdochs. Now, well, they're technically not government officials. They're basically people, in my opinion, who will just chill for the Trump organization or the Trump administration because they benefit from this. Keep in mind, Donald Trump specifically says in choosing board members, quote, Trump wants investors who are patriotic. And the full list of investors is still to be determined. That's a fact. That's what Trump says. In my opinion, this is an advertisement for people to bend the knee to Trump and then get an allocation to invest in TikTok as long as they prove their loyalty or alignment. Now, you might wonder, like, oh, why would I think that? But, there has to be some kind of loyalty test. Well, because that's already what we do with American diplomacy. See, the Trump administration already has 110 out of 195 ambassador seats vacant. This is an all-time high for vacancies right now for U.S. diplomats. Now, Donald Trump blames Democrats, but what's really happening is Marco Rubio, who's running this, wants pretty much state decisions all to come from Trump. From the center, he calls it. Trump doesn't really want representatives. We've already got an administration that's less focused on human rights, more focused on anti-immigration, less focused on human aid, less focused on promoting democracy, and more focused on U.S. business. Now, a lot of people look at that and say, that's exactly what we want. We want to be anti-immigration. We want more U.S. business promotion, and we want less of the focus on all the other stuff. But as a result of that, you're definitely seeing less U.S. influence and less transparency. And a lot of the ambassadors or people working in the State Department are really nervous that in spite of all this lower transparency, they're nervous, or maybe corroborating this lower transparency, they're nervous to provide actual opinions. Because if there's anything that looks unfavorable to the United States, these ambassadors or State Department individuals end up getting demoted, or somebody else who's shilling the United States gets promoted. This is all within the State Department to make sure that the entire State Department follows Trump fidelity. Now, Trump fidelity is now going more extreme than we've ever seen ever before in any prior administration, both Republican and Democrat, where the Pentagon is now going to require approved escorts for members of the press. So usually reporters are allowed to kind of roam around most of the parts of the Pentagon and collect intel on how is our money being spent, what's going on with wars, what's actually happening in the world, and then report on that in an unfiltered manner. Now you're required to have an escort in the Pentagon, which hasn't been done for generations. And anything that you report on needs to be approved by the Pentagon before you're allowed to report on it. All that, by the way, was leaked out. This is basically putting a propaganda-style filter over the Department of War. This is kind of George Orwell style or 1984 or just straight up like Chinese style. And so this is where, when we look at this in terms of the TikTok deal, think about how much power is now being given to Trump, because he potentially controls the entire algorithm once this deal goes through. China loses it. This is why China doesn't want the deal to go through, unless maybe they get some really big discounts on tariffs. But Trump needs to have this before midterms, because in my opinion, Trump looks at this and says, this is my opportunity to get a new patriot algorithm. It's basically a pseudonym for propaganda. The P algorithm. Patriot to Trump, propaganda to anybody looking in from the outside. Which is really interesting, because maybe you love that. Maybe you love Donald Trump on that side and for what he's doing. Fight fake news. On the other hand, it's his fake news, right? That's like the greatest irony is Truth Social, because we know it's his truth, which, deviates. Well, we'll just leave it there. So this is a big moment, and this TikTok deal and this whole TikTok algorithm thing is much more than just getting the Chinese out. Like, I think we all agree the Chinese not being in control of this algorithm is a good thing. But you're basically handing it directly to one party, and it'll be used for propaganda without a doubt. So it does create a question of like, when does that spread to other platforms? Hopefully not, knock on wood, because I still feel that we can speak freely in an unbiased manner here on YouTube. And I don't shill to one party. I shit on the Biden administration as much as I do on Trump, and I will always for politicians because I call out hypocrisy when I see it. I think it's a disgrace that even our Supreme Court is extremely politicized. I've shown this before, but you could pause the screen on that image right there and take a look at how political persuasions even affect our Supreme Court justices, which basically destroy anyone's civics class opinions from fifth grade or whatever, that these people are neutral. Anyway, it's all a disaster. That's my take. Let's see what some of your comments are. I've listened to left propaganda my entire life. It's nothing new. Yeah, I mean, that's what I started this video off with, right? Is that you've had left control for a long time of Twitter and otherwise. It's important to filter it out. So it's very interesting. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but it's gonna be very interesting.
Knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.